going through a lot of in-depth information around what to expect in the world of work. And I really have to thank the group for your engagement and your input and your comments. I also want you to know that you are not the only ones who are feeling the sense of trepidation, a sense of uncertainty. It's you and graduates around the world that are having to navigate the evolving complexities of the world of work. So one thing I want you to remember in our entire sessions together is that the world of work is always going to change. It's always going to be shifting. And so you are allowed to edit your story as the working world changes. So don't get stuck in a fixed mindset, because if I had done that, I'd still be working probably in my first career. So for those of us who are joining on for the first time today, Yongi, are you recording? Let me see. Yes, I think we are recording. Perfect. For those of you who are just meeting me today, I'm Cheryl Bernardi, the Wholeness Guide. I've worked at 4 universities over the past 15 years, UJ, UP, Stellenbosch, as well as UWC. I've had 16 job titles in my life. So I know about work and jobs and managers and colleagues and the rise and fall of our excitement and when the honeymoon stage is over in a new job. And that's what I want to kind of uncover today. So the world of work and the story of work is still evolving in my own life. This is why I'm saying that never get stuck in a fixed story, because if you do that, you will miss some great opportunities, and also you will feel stifled in terms of where you actually are and where you want to be. So some of the sessions we've done, some of the students have responded by saying the world of work is not the same as it used to be. Exactly. That's what we want to help you to prepare you for. Looking in the mirror and thinking about the plans for the years ahead. Okay, so keep an open mind as we go along, because we want you to feel confident. We want you to feel secure in your plan as we go along. So what we've already covered in this course so far is discovering the hero within. We've looked at the personal development aspect of identity and the philosophy around work. Okay, just give me 1 second, everybody. I've just got load shedding, so I quickly have to turn my screen on. In the meantime, please pop in a message in the chat to let me know how are you feeling about getting into the world of work. Give me 1 second. I'll be back in a minute. Thank you, Escom. Okay, you're back. So what we've been covering in this course is the personal development aspect of what am I believing about work and my value in the workplace, and how I'll be able to earn an income, and will I be successful? Those are the things we covered in the first section. Navigating the new pathways of work, how the world of work has changed, and how we can adapt our applications, how we're going to be approaching actually finding our next job, and how we can take charge of our own professional development, essentially. And in this part of the course that we've been doing, this module is winning at the business of work. So what does it actually mean when you go to a company and it's a business? What is their business? What is their customer base? How do they make money? How does it all work? And where do I fit into that whole process? And in the next module that's coming up, we're going to be looking at building for greatness. So as we've covered the personal aspects, looking at the context of the world of work, looking at how you then apply yourself into specific environments, then we're going to go into, in our last module, how do I continue to live my life with meaning and purpose? How do I find fulfillment? How do I maybe go into academic development if that's where I want to go into? How do I cross over into industry if that's what I want to do? How do I start my business? Or how do I maybe build my financial independent plan so that I can do the work that I love and be more of an active participant in the world of work and make it work for me? So we've covered these parts of the sessions, finding their first job, interviewing, online interview, in-person interview. If you've missed any of these sessions, you can go and have a look at the Teams group, and you'll find there's a list of the slides, and you'll also find the recordings as well on there. So it might be something that perhaps right now you're busy with a project or an exam, and you know, okay, I'll actually need this in 2 or 3 months. So you will have access to that. Make sure you have a look at those things. What I'll also be doing as we've been going along is making notes of the specific questions and comments coming up, because I'm wanting to do something that actually supports your journey. So after we've done the last module, I'm going to then compile a kind of a guidebook, you know, post-graduation, and it will cover all of the elements that we've covered in the sessions. It will give you almost like a personal development tool that you can use, the self-assessment questions, all of the guides on, you know, CV, motivation, letter, all of those things. Okay, so that's something to look forward to as well. That's coming up in the next few weeks. And so remember, this is a very open conversation. I want you to be interactive and involved. I want to really connect with you. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand and ask the question or comment as well. I can't see the comment section, but I think Yongi will help me with that if necessary. And also make sure that you mute until we get to the question answer part. So today we're going to look at when the honeymoon is over. And like I told you, I've had 16 job titles, right? That also includes the time I was freelancing and had my own business. So entrepreneur is part of that as well. And that's another whole session around the loneliness of the entrepreneurial journey. But this is focusing more on going into an organization, getting that staff card, becoming a member of a team, sitting in meetings that we love, and how to work with colleagues. So some of the things that have come up in previous sessions I've done with other graduates, other professionals, underlying all of that. Why are people at work so mean? We think that we leave all the high school drama, you know, in our teenage years. Not so. Office politics is something that you'll have to navigate in every single job. I mean, we could ask Yongi to share, but it is recorded, so we want to protect privacy. Any institution, any organization, if there's people there, there's going to be power struggles, there will be politics. So how do you deal with that? Because that can be such a distraction to your energy, to your focus, to your work. It really can. So how do we deal with that? That's a very important thing to cover today. How do I find my voice in the workplace? And this is very difficult for young professionals coming into this space. You, as Gen Zs, have a certain experience of coming into adulthood, which will be different for the Gen Y and the millennials and also baby boomers, right? So you're going into a mixed generational team, and you already are going to be perceived and have certain kind of generalizations made about you because you are a young person coming into the space. Some of the things coming up when I speak to, you know, employers who are overseeing graduate programs, there's often that the tension between what the young employee or the young professional expects without understanding the context of the work environment and the history and the culture of that space versus what the employer expects of you. Now, in some of the previous sessions, we looked at what are the employer's expectations versus what are the employee expectations, right? But even in all of that, in navigating that, you have to figure out, how can I express my ideas? How can I express my dissatisfaction? How can I express my praise in healthy ways in the workplace? And that can be very tricky because the Saturday session, there was somebody who said, you know, Cheryl, you're saying find your voice, be authentic, but I've done that. Now, she was from, I think, Swaziland. I think it was Swaziland. I'm not sure she's on the call today. If you are, just let me know. And she said, you know, I was speaking up and I was saying, hey, I'm not okay with certain things that were happening. But then she got this reputation, and obviously Swaziland's much kind of a smaller environment. And so because of that, she felt like she wasn't able to get a job. So there could be consequences of that. And that's a very real thing. So how do we handle that? How can I improve the way that I work with my team? Okay, remember the previous sessions where we spoke about different personality types. Not everybody thinks the same as you do. Not everybody works the same as you do. Not everyone has had a life experience that you have had. So every single person you see is an iceberg. You don't know what's going on beneath the surface. And your responsibility is to know yourself better than anybody else can know you. So this is what we're going to keep looking at, is how can I keep that healthy emotional intelligence, that self-awareness, that working with others, that trying to be understanding first before I'm trying to be understood. Okay, so these are the questions we're going to go into today. But before we do, this question I asked last time, that was a showing up question. Let's talk about the big picture. Okay, so navigating office politics. That's one of the first things you will encounter in your job. Now, it's difficult to when you're going into a new team because everybody else already knows each other. You are the newbie. Okay, and what you will notice is that there might be certain people that start coming to you. Let me see if I can find a name here. So there's a Manette, right? So Manette might go into a team, and so somebody senses, okay, there's fresh blood here, and they'll come to you and they'll say, oh, yeah, so tell me about yourself, and they'll be interested in your story. So they try to build that trust, and they'll say, you know, Joseph in this team, you should be careful of this guy because he's this and this and this, and they'll tell you their narrative, right? So now you try to keep an open mind, but when you speak to Joseph, you've already had this person giving you their perspective on it. Okay, I remember I went to a manager. I started at a new team, and the manager was telling me about all the different people in the team, kind of giving me a background into them. But that was her perspective and her kind of take on people there. So they really color your view. So as far as possible, when you get into a work environment, make sure that you try to limit any gossip because actually, people who come to you to gossip, these are people that generally can't be trusted because if they're gossiping about other people in the team, they will be gossiping about you to other people in the team. So keep your guard up, I would say, with people like that, because you might think, oh, this person's helpful and friendly, and they're trying to be, kind of offer me some support, but they can be very divisive people in the team. And sometimes, people they are maybe in jobs for a long time and they kind of give over to this negative behavior. And so those are people to be aware of when you get into the workplace. Who are the gossipers? Okay, I've seen these people are generally the gossipers. Let me just keep a healthy distance here because politics is generally power, right? So if you really want to understand the power game in the organization, look for an organogram or ask for an organogram because sometimes people try to make power plays, right? So think about who actually makes the decisions, who's actually the managers, who are actually the supervisors, the team leaders, and understand how that dynamic plays into, for example, the CEO or the director level or whatever else. Because sometimes people are trying to be seen as powerful, but they actually don't make the decisions. So understand that. Understand that the major relationship you're going to have to build and have a healthy one with as much as it is up to you is with your manager or your team leader. And now there could also be a personality clash between you and your manager. And if you have someone that you perceive to be as toxic, then that is going to be something that is going to impact your daily working life, essentially. And also remember that not all managers are leaders as well. So you might have an expectation when you started this job, this person seemed friendly and supportive, but as you've been working with them for a week, 2 weeks, a month, you start to see, oh, this person's kind of a workaholic, and now they expect me to be a workaholic. And now I need to figure out how to really navigate the situation. So something that might be very helpful when you get there, and luckily you'll have these notes, okay? But think about if you were going to go into like a soccer game, and I keep mentioning soccer and I don't watch soccer, but that's all I can think of because right now, a soccer game, right? So who is on your team? What position do you play in the team? Because ultimately you're there to win. You're there to deliver on tasks, move projects forward, maybe meet some targets. So what will it look like if you win? So who is on your team? And who's on the opposing team, right? So what are you coming up against? Sometimes they might be colleagues in your team that are, I want to say, in the kindest way I can say this, non-players. So non-players are people that you're supposed to all be playing soccer. You're supposed to be kind of going for the goal, but you kick the ball to them proverbially, right? So maybe they're supposed to work together, be collegial, support, help, and they kind of look at you like they don't know why they're on the field. They don't know what a soccer ball is, and that can be very, very frustrating. So we're going to talk about work ethic just now, but the biggest thing you can do when it comes to office politics is to be self-aware. To, before you speak too much, to start noticing some patterns, some behaviors. When you're doing your journaling or just making your notes about how you're feeling about things, make a note of these players. So look at them as like players on your team. You have to work with them. You didn't choose them. You were chosen to be on the team. You were signed up, right? And now you're here. And now you're going to have to make this work. You're going to have to figure out, how can I best position myself to help the team move forward with what I have? And the way to do that, one of the first ways to do that, is to seek first to understand where that person is coming from. So when you start to face difficult people or difficult situations, and I faced a few of that in my life, it can, and especially if you are a person that feels first, so your feeling is kind of more foregrounded than the facts, right? So you feel first and think later. There's some people who think first very rationally, and then they can put the emotions and kind of move on. So if you are someone that is very empathetic and you kind of feel energies, that's going to be something that you're going to have to manage, because um, you want harmony. And so any kind of sense of disharmony is going to really affect the way that you approach your work. That's a big thing for those who are empaths on the call today. So active listening basically means that you are not just hearing for you to then, give a response, but to really understand, what is this person saying? What is this person conveying? And we all think that we are active listeners, but we actually retain very little from what we really, really listen to. We don't actually take all the information in. So the first thing is to pay attention, maintain eye contact. If you're in a meeting, take notes, figure out what is really happening here. Look at the person who's talking, give them eye contact, give me a full emotion. Don't look at your phone, actually pay attention. And that's one of the things that, as a young professional coming into the space, try not to be on your phone. Keep your phone away, because people will expect you to always be on your phone 24/7. So don't live up to that perception, or down to that perception. When the person is speaking, don't interrupt them. I sometimes have that challenge. I know that I try to preempt what the person's going to say, so I have to be careful that I don't speak over the person and interrupt them. Because when you interrupt them, you might miss something that they were about to say that could have been important. So practice active listening, even in your friendships. Next time you go on a date, next time you're hanging out with your friends, practice active listening. Some great videos on YouTube about active listening. Ask questions. If you don't understand something, make sure you ask them, can you repeat that? Or am I understanding you correctly? Especially when it comes to your manager, for example, giving you a task, okay? And then follow directions. If you're not sure what to do, go back and check, because otherwise you'll spend a lot of time being confused and maybe doing the wrong thing and having to go back and fix it again anyway. Visualize what is being said is basically activating your imagination to see, am I really understanding what this person is saying? And if you can be a good listener, right, you'll be able to retain a lot more information, insights. For example, if the role is in sales, active listening is going to be something that's going to help you to meet your targets, because you're actually hearing what the person is saying. You're not just seeing them as a cash register, for example. A big thing to avoid is the drama triangle. Now, the drama triangle is something that we learn from our families and friends and culture. It's just something that we automatically do. Maybe we don't know that we are doing it. I just want to make sure that I'm sharing with the sound on. Just give me a second. There we go. I'm going to share again, so we make sure we listen to the sound. So this is a video around the drama triangle. And as you watch this, I want you to think about, and put in the chat for me, situations where you found yourself in the drama triangle. It could be with your friends, it could be with your partner, it could be with your lecturer, maybe a misunderstanding, anything, right? It's actually very crucial to see this. When I saw this in a coaching session it changed my life forever. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this before? So the drama triangle.
Do you know the difference between working from a place of purpose and presence versus...
Can you hear, Yongi? The sound coming through?
Yes, Cheryl. From my side, I can hear perfectly fine. Thanks.
Great. From the drama triangle? Working from a place of purpose and presence is above the line, whilst working from the drama triangle is below the line. A lot of organisations spend most of their time unknowingly working within the drama triangle. Drama is characterised by blaming, complaining, defensiveness, and wanting to be right. This often stems from a place of fear. Like a good series on Netflix, every drama has characters. This is no different for the drama triangle. The drama triangle has a hero, a villain, and a victim. The hero seeks relief, but this is often temporary. The hero is often the one who swoops in and saves the day, instead of teaching someone the tools and techniques to save themselves. The hero will often give someone the bread without showing them how to bake it for themselves. The role of the hero is to do things that make the immediate pain go away without facing and solving the core issue. You can be the hero to both yourself and others, and it is often driven from not wanting anyone to feel bad. This can manifest as you doing things that provide temporary relief, like comfort eating or drinking. With others, it can sound like, "It will be okay, don't worry, I will do it for you." Often heroes are seeking value by being needed by others. The second role in the drama triangle is the villain. The villain's job is to blame others or themselves. When you blame yourself, this can sound like, "I shouldn't have eaten that pizza. I'm not working hard enough." When you blame others, you may say, "It's not my fault," or "You messed that up." The final role of the drama triangle is the role of the victim. The role of the victim is to feel like life is happening to them and they are powerless over it. This could be at the effect of your boss, your kids, your job, your body, your mood, the people around you. When you are in victim mode, you often feel stuck and helpless. When people and teams move above the line into a place of purpose and presence, their role changes. This is the empowerment dynamic. The victim becomes the creator. The creator takes responsibility for their life and stops complaining about what is happening to them. When in creator, you own the power to choose, respond, and focus on outcomes. The villain becomes the challenger. The challenger applies healthy pressure to support themselves or others in facing and dealing with situations that evokes learning, growth, and action. Unlike the villain, they don't blame, complain, or get defensive. When working with purpose and presence, the hero becomes the coach. The coach doesn't try to fix anyone and sees everyone as fully empowered, owners of their own destiny. They support and facilitate clarity by asking questions, driving others to take responsibility for creating the life they really want. When leaders and teams learn to work above the line in the empowerment dynamic, they find that they are more creative, engaged, and productive. So the choice is yours. Are you working from purpose and presence, or the drama triangle?
Let me know in the chat what you thought about that. I think it's something that can really impact our experience of work on a daily basis. And I also have to say, in theory, that's wonderful. But when you get into a real work environment, there's not a lot that you can control, right? Remember, the circle of control is there's a circle of influence, things you can influence, things that are out of your control, things you cannot do anything about, and things that are in your control. So what you can control is your attitude, your mindset, your actions, your thoughts. And basically, that's it. You can control how you respond, how you react. You cannot control other people. You can influence other people by your positive and healthy habits and responses, but that's really all that you can do in terms of a work environment. So make friends with frustration, because frustration is just simply not being able to get to where you want to go as fast as you want to get there, because you and your work will involve being dependent on other people as well. So if you have a project, for example, a proposal, and you maybe need information from different departments, it might not come as quickly as you've asked for because they also have other work to do. So understand that a big part of your job, a big part of your work productivity and your work kind of satisfaction will be how you learn to manage that frustration. If you find yourself getting frustrated, let's think about that example again of the proposal, move it forward as much as you can, right? Then say, okay, I've done what I can. I'm waiting for this department to send the information to me. They said by Tuesday I should have the information. By Tuesday afternoon, if you haven't received it, send them a reminder or go see them in person or whatever it is you need to do. How else can I get this information? That's something you're going to have to continually be proactive about, because in any work environment, maybe not every day, but you will be tempted by this at least every week. You'll be maybe upset at your colleagues, or they'll be upset with you, or something will just kind of not fit. Remember, the workplace is full of problems, and you are being paid to solve these problems. So what's really important is for number one, for you to, if you're feeling this anger, frustration, disappointment, rage, whatever it is, figure out, okay, where am I right now? Which part of the drama triangle am I in? Am I in the victim role, thinking, oh my gosh, these people are crazy? Am I in the persecutor role? Am I now taking out my frustration on somebody else? Am I trying to be the hero, the rescuer who's saying yes to people, trying to help them, but actually then I resent the fact that I've said I'm going to do these extra things? So locate where you are in the drama triangle. And this applies also in your family dynamic. It really does. When you find yourself being pulled into these conversations, because we know each other too well, we're too familiar with each other. So we know all the buttons to push. And then say, okay, I've now identified where I am and how can I shift? How can I shift from if I'm the victim to the creator? And how can I keep building the upward spiral conversations? Please let me know in the chat if you have any questions. Youngie, I can't see the chat, but if there is something, will you just let me know?
Not a problem, Cheryl. Nothing at the moment.
Nothing as
Sure.
yet. Okay. It's a very cool concept to understand, because we can start seeing how this applies in every situation in our lives. The challenge is to always remember that, okay, if I'm going to be angry, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to be angry. Then I'm going to journal. What am I angry about? What can I control? What can I do? Otherwise, you'll let your emotions, which are valid, dictate what you do. And that over time gets you into a place where you feel frustrated in your job and you feel like, what have I done? That's when the honeymoon phase gets into the I want to run away phase. And something else that is very integral in how you feel connected to your job, right? So remember, your job is just a temporary thing. We can get very involved in our jobs. It can become a bit of our identity, which is very dangerous. Our job is a temporary situation where we can apply our personal and professional skills, but it's not our work. Our work is something that we are discovering that only we can get to do certain things in a certain way, and that's what makes us unique. That gives us our unique value to the marketplace. So every job is going to teach you a lot about what your work is. And again, as a young professional in your early 20s, late 20s, that first 10 years of working, that experience, maybe 5, 8, 10 years, is going to help you figure out, I thought I like this kind of role in this kind of industry, in this kind of company. And now that I've done it, I realize I actually like 10% of this role, but I'm actually very excited about a different role that I knew nothing about that is actually interesting to me. And how can I find a way to explore that? So let me give an example of what I mean. When I started at UJ, I started there as a publications coordinator. My career and my job had been journalism and publishing and donor newsletters and all of that. So those experiences helped me to get that job at UJ. So I was in charge of doing the alumni newsletter there and the annual report, the research report. Oh my gosh, but as I say that, I really get the frustration and the angst of that time. So I was doing publications. But then in the same department or the same division that I was part of, so in the office, one section was communication, and the other edge was the marketing and then fundraising. So I would often meet the fundraising manager in the kitchen and would talk, and she would talk about a donor thing, and we'd often work together because I would do some of the articles about the donors. And I thought, you know what? Fundraising is so interesting because on my weekend time, I would sometimes have projects where I got people to, raise money for children's homes or women's shelters and things like that. And because of my work in the blood service, I also had a good understanding about the donor market, and I was very interested in why people give. So in the blood service was why people give blood, and often it was because they were affected by a friend or family member or themselves who almost lost their lives were it not for the blood product that they received. So why people give, why people come to work and hate their jobs, that curiosity around people was generally that golden skill, that root skill that I spoke about in previous sessions. There's one thing that's kind of like a golden thread in your life. My interest in people is really what was my kind of core skill, and that could manifest itself in writing about and doing feature articles and interviewing people. So the fundraising, I never thought I would ever do fundraising work. I didn't know what that really was. In South Africa, fundraising is a kind of new profession, relatively new, but in like America, the UK, those are very established professions, and people actually grow up wanting to become fundraisers. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. So you might then get into a job with your current qualification, but as you work and get experience and you have more insights into the kind of work that you love, the kind of work that you're good at, but you don't actually like being good at that, and developing different interests, you'll start to see, actually, this is the adventure story, right? Things that I didn't know I was going to come across on my journey. So be open to that and start to be curious about what is this interesting? Why is this interesting to me? But then also finding your voice in the workplace is a complex thing as a young person because you've also grown up in social media, which means that you have expectation to be heard and to be seen because you are surrounded by people who are using these platforms to be seen and to be heard. But now you're coming to an environment where that's not necessarily the same kind of context. I'm trying to explain this as best as I can. So in your personal life, you see all these people being very open, authentic, expressing exactly how they feel and think. And, that's something that you resonate with. But within the culture of the organization, what you thought the company is going to be like versus what it actually is when you start to work there. This is all the things that affect the employee's perception of the employer. A big thing is the manager relationship. So this is your key driver around that. Whether this person is motivating you or actually causing you to hate your job, that's another thing. How people deal with recognition and feedback. If you have autonomy to do your tasks, or if your manager is a micromanager and keeps telling you what to do. Maybe you are somebody that needs that guidance, but maybe you're somebody that, is kind of tell me what to do and I will do it. Don't tell me how to do it. I'll deliver on the results. Just let me do it my way. Okay, so all of your values, all of your personality, the way that you actually apply yourself at work is something that is a constantly shifting thing. Okay, so all of these factors around, are you getting extra training? Is there clarity on your role? Do you know what you're doing every day? Is there cohesion? Is there actually a plan for what you have to do? Psychological safety in a work environment can be impacted by passivity as well. If there's no clear direction, if there's no clear targets, if there's no healthy pressure actually for you to do your job and no deadlines and no accountability, that can also be very frustrating and very demotivating because then you kind of like in this limbo and you don't know whether you're succeeding, you don't know whether you're winning, you kind of feel very demotivated. So when it comes to understanding how you are going to be able to function effectively in the work environment is also to understand what are your needs of the workplace as a professional. And some of these deeper things, and wholeness at work always goes into the deep things because they are the real things. I feel I need to feel understood. Okay, so you want to be seen as a whole person. I don't want to just be the staff, staff number. I come in, I do my job, and no one knows about my personal life, because if you don't feel that sense of people know who I am, and obviously with healthy boundaries, or you don't feel a connection to your employees, to your fellow colleagues, that's always difficult. Autonomy is something that's also very, very important. So there's a guy called Daniel Pink, and he's written a book called Drive, and he talks about the 3 primary drivers of employee motivation, and that is autonomy, mastery. Can't remember the last one. I'll think of it now. Autonomy, mastery, and I think it's clarity around the roles. So think about what actually is driving you when it comes to work, because if we don't have that, that's when we start feeling disconnected. Do you feel valued? Okay, are they helping you to grow and expand your skill sets? Do you feel cared for? That's a big thing. If you don't feel cared for, then, and they're asking you for loyalty, but you don't feel like they are giving you loyalty, there's a disconnect right there already. I feel invested. Do I care about the fact that what we're trying to do is actually important? Is there meaning? So something I realized in my career progression is that as much as I'd always basically done work in like the NPO space and working, for example, with the blood service where they were actually saving lives, I needed work to have meaning for me. I needed to buy into what are we doing? And often what happens with procrastination when we are struggling with work tasks is all of these underlying things here. So if we're struggling to actually meet our job objectives, we might just think, oh gosh, people think I'm lazy, but it's all these other things here. And if you don't have a leader that can be a good coach, then I think it's something for you to look at to try and get that support by yourself. Now, it doesn't have to be someone that you necessarily have to pay, although that could be an option, but somebody that is in your work environment that could be a good mentor or a coach. So look for that kind of peer supporter, if I could say it that way. Somebody that you have a good connection with and you can actually speak to about work situations. Maybe you are feeling procrastination and you say, listen, hey, I'm really struggling with this project. Can we have a quick coffee? And can you help me with this? Now, this is where you have to be brave to ask for help. Okay, so that perfectionism, we were trying to dismantle that perfectionism in previous sessions. We looked at the 5 manifestations of imposter syndrome. When we are trying to be perfect, when we find ourselves stuck in perfectionism, then we are operating from the false self. The false self is so afraid that somebody's going to find out that I'm not valuable, that I'm not worthy. I have to keep on trying to do things from the external to prove that I am. And so any failure is then seen as a validation of your worthlessness, which is a lie. It's a lie. I was doing a session last night. That's why I'm so adamant about this. So operating from the authentic self means that you give yourself opportunity to fail. Now, you might also be in a work environment where the way they deal with failure is also problematic. So in terms of psychological safety, that can also be something that can cause you to feel disconnected, disengaged, where you have to put the mask on. And so now you're scared to actually do the job because of the repercussions of that as well. So I know I'm going into a lot of things that perhaps people who have maybe been in the workplace actually understand. So if you have any questions, is there any comments or questions, Yongi, in the chat?
Not at this point in time, Cheryl. No.
Not yet. Okay, great. Any questions that you have? Anybody welcome to unmute and ask the question, because I am going into a lot of depth, and I think people who've been working for a while can maybe have a bit more context. But if you have not yet been in a kind of real job yet, and if you have a bit feeling a bit vague on some things, just raise your hand or unmute and ask a question or comment. I'm happy to take that right now.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi. Yes, who's speaking? I can't see.
It's Beata.
Lorato. Go ahead with
Beata.
it.
It's Bianca.
Oh,
Okay.
Bianca, sorry. I couldn't see her very well. Bianca, go ahead.
Um,
What's your question?
I had a job for like 6 months just before I came here to study.
Mm-hmm.
And then the situation was like the boss and then her secretary, they were very close, let me
Uh-huh.
say, right? So if I had a problem with either one of them, I didn't actually feel like I could approach them because I feel like maybe like they would, support each other or defend one another. So there wasn't really that option. So
Mm.
now the rest of us in the team really felt a certain type of way about
Mm.
each one of them, like their leadership style, and then just the way they would do things. And then when I
Mm.
would get frustrated because I can't directly go to my manager because the secretary was my manager, she was overseeing me, then I
Yeah.
would go to one of my colleagues, and then my colleagues would be like, okay, I'm experiencing the same thing with her. And
Mm.
the other colleague also told me he's experiencing the same thing with her. So like it became one
Yeah.
of those things where it was almost like a us versus them thing. And then I don't
Yes.
know if that ties into office gossip or not because I didn't have anybody
Mm.
else to go to who else would understand my situation better than those that are experiencing it with me.
Yeah.
So I just want to know whether I right in that or should I have chosen another path.
So your question is, should you have spoken to your other colleagues about your challenges with the manager and the secretary? That's a question.
Yes.
Okay. Bianca, I'm going to ask you another question before I can answer that one. What is your plan with this job? How long do you plan to be
Um,
there?
I
Yeah.
was just gonna be there for a while, but then I
Mm-hmm.
do want to go back once I'm done studying here. So it's always a thing of I would like to go back. But at the time when I was there, it was just for like 4 months. So that was
Mm.
yeah. So it's a
Okay.
thing of I stay there for a while, then I leave, and then I go back afterwards.
Okay.
So
So aside from that
just for
difficult
context,
relationship, yeah.
um, most of the people that I was working there with already left the company. So when I go
Oh.
back, there will be a whole new like
Mm.
yeah
Okay.
environment, whole new people working there.
Okay. So aside from the difficulty with the managerial um, kind of relationship, and thank you for sharing that because I think it's confirming, when I was saying that you will have these challenges. The actual job itself, have you found that to be helpful? Have you found that to be something that you want to pursue? The actual work that you were doing?
Yes, yes, I absolutely love the work. I love it.
Mm,
It's very difficult and very challenging, but
mm,
I love it and I learned so much. I learned so much about the work and I also learned so much about myself. So yeah, I
yeah.
would like to go back and I would like to do it.
Okay. So Bianca, thank you so much for sharing that. Was that part of like a kind of vac work experience that you did at a company?
Again?
Was that like a bit of a vac work, like a vacation work type of thing that you did there at that company?
No, it was more like I was just
Contract.
filling in a position for like a candidate attorney because I'm doing law.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so law industry, yes, it's rife with with challenges. Bianca, thank you so much. I'm gonna answer your question as well. Um,
Mm.
so what Bianca was sharing is exactly what I've been saying in terms of you can't choose who will be your leader, your manager, but even in that difficult environment, she still learned amazing things, right? So think about yourself in the hero's journey, not the hero in the drama triangle that tries to rescue people, but the hero's journey where you are the hero of your story and you go off into an adventure. Okay, you have a mission, you have a purpose, and along the way you get a guide, you have your tribe members, and then you face the enemy. Now, I'm not saying that people are your enemy, but understand that in any worthwhile endeavor, you will have conflict. You will have people that perhaps maybe they're not knowingly playing that role, but understand that there will be opposition. That's what I'm trying to say. Opposition to you growing. And in a sense, to make the hero stronger, we almost have to face that opposition. So what Bianca is saying is, I actually enjoy the work. I'm learning so much about myself. So what I would give advice to Bianca as well as to everybody else is every single job that you have, make sure that you know what you want to get out of it. So it could be, okay, I'm going to get this amount of money every month, and this is my plan for the money. I'm not going to go just, open up clothing accounts like Cheryl did. I'm going to be wiser than her. Please do that. Please be wiser. I'm going to save up. I'm going to get my experience here. I'm going to build my collaborations and my connections. So even if you are going to do that, Bianca, going back, have a plan of how you would deal with this difficult relationship, right? So what you're going to have to get stronger in is boundaries, how to be able to keep professional. And if it's something that affects you emotionally, make sure that you have a way to deal with that. So either journaling, or I go for a run, or whatever it is. But never stay in a toxic environment longer than you have to. And what I mean by that is, in toxic environments, as much as the work can be exciting and good, I'm coming to that actually just now, about how you can't change a toxic environment. I've tried single-handedly, you cannot. And it kind of distracts you from what you're actually there for. So I think, Bianca, don't be too hard on yourself that you've spoken about the manager and the secretary to other people. That's going to come up, right? It will come up organically if there is a difficult person there. But what you want to do is minimize the negative thing around you, to say, shifting that conversation to, okay, let's acknowledge, you have to acknowledge that it's a difficult relationship and this is the dynamic. But then what can we do? Okay, so if you have to minimize communication, or just keep it on email, or kind of just be very professional and short in your conversations, if they do things that are actually violating a boundary, screaming at you is not okay in meetings, or kind of, any negative behavior that's abusive. It's never okay. You don't have to tolerate that. Now, sometimes in some situations, people feel justified to do that. Maybe some industries like law, unfortunately, they feel maybe justified to do that. But you're going to have to determine, what am I going to be okay with dealing with? Can I actually handle that? How am I going to manage that? Can I have a conversation with this person to say, I'm not comfortable when you speak to me like I'm a child, or maybe you can't say it in that way, but you'll have to figure out in that relationship, how can I manage this in a healthy way? And it's tough. I know, I've had toxic managers in my lifetime. And yeah, it's not easy. But finding your voice in the workplace, like Bianca is saying, you are actually learning so many skills, right? So the more you can practice how to speak up in non-work context. So let me say, for example, you're at a friend's birthday party and no one wants to sing for them. So you say, hey guys, let's sing for this person. Let's say a few words for this person. If somebody says, who wants to do a speech, volunteer. Because the more confidence you get in speaking up, in sharing your ideas, the better able you'll feel to do it in a professional setting. And I spoke about this in the previous session, but again, think about how your current relationship with authority figures in your personal life, if there's been trauma where you felt like you couldn't speak up in your home, for example, that will affect the way that you show up in the workplace. You'll not be able to feel like you have a right to speak up. So if that is something that you have encountered, I'm going to tell you again to get professional help as soon as possible. Go to counseling, ask for help, because number one, growing up in a toxic environment, or in a place where you didn't feel like you have a right to your voice, it's going to follow you at every single workplace you go to. It's going to follow you in your personal relationships. It's going to follow you in your friendships. Okay, so for you to get healthy and confident, and to know that you have a right to speak, you have a right to be heard, number one, that's very, very important. Going down to the roots of our fear is actually very important, because I think sometimes we avoid that because we don't know that we can heal. Like, I think I avoided it for years because I didn't know I could heal. I thought I was stuck as being a victim. And I wish I had somebody to tell me, Cheryl, go to a counselor now. She's going to help you. I would have been much stronger, and I would have been much more able to maximize my opportunities in my different work environments. I definitely feel that. So keep reflecting and growing in this area. Something that comes up a lot when I speak to the corporates and I speak to people who are in the graduate space is that there's this issue of entitlement. It comes up a lot. So they feel like young professionals are entitled. Okay, so understand that there is going to be a contextual progression or narrative in terms of when you might get a raise or when you might get promoted or something like that. So before you ask for something, try and find a person, a peer that you can speak to before you go speak to a manager, for example, to say, hey, I just want to find out, in the organization, how does promotions work? So try and ask it informally versus formally, because there is an expectation that just because you've got the degree, it doesn't mean that you'll get a promotion automatically a year from now, because other people also have degrees, have been working there for 5 years, whatever it is. So take a while to figure out the lay of the land, and try and be open to learning. Try and be open to learning and not just assuming that you know better, or after 3 weeks know how things are working, because it takes you 6 months to a year to really get into an understanding and a flow of what the work culture is like, what the projects are like, and kind of the pace of work. And like I said, you can never ever change a work environment. It's not your job to change a bad leader. It's your job to learn how to have healthier boundaries, because you are going to face toxic people in your next role. So quick question I want to ask you is, what is your take on work ethic? When you hear the word or the phrase work ethic, what comes up for you? If you pop something into the chat, then Yongi can read that for me, or you're welcome to unmute and just give me your definition of a work ethic. Would like to share? Mr. Sarah Brian, are you there? Would you like to maybe share what is your definition of work ethic? You can unmute if you're able to. Okay, Brian, not sure if he's able to maybe respond. Who else would like to maybe give me a definition of work ethic? Remember, your perception going into the workplace is that Gen Zs are entitled, they don't want to work as hard as we've worked, they're expecting lots of promotions without doing the kind of paying the dues. Those are the things that are coming up for people when they see a young person in the workplace. So what is your definition of work ethic? Is anything in the comment there, Yongi?
Not at this point in time, Cheryl, no.
Okay, so maybe you can give us, Yongi, your definition, since you are a loyal SU staff member. What have you seen, or what's your definition?
Okay.
I'm putting you on the spot because no one else wants to say
yes.
it.
I would say work ethic, it's intertwined with culture, the work culture that is in the organization or the company, how you work, and also how you perform. Performance is very important. This is why we do the work that we do. So performance and also the culture of the company. So I would say those two are very important, and they make up the work ethic that is based on that specific company or organization.
Yeah, it's different for everyone, right? Thank you, Yongi. I put you on the spot because I wanted someone to just give me their definition. Thank you for playing along there. So work ethic is actually important because it kind of determines how you are perceived in the workplace. Now, a strong, like what Yongi was saying is basically how you apply yourself and if you are perceived as a hard worker or a good worker, right? So that's obviously relative. So I think a good definition is to say what's the difference between a strong work ethic versus a poor work ethic in these 4 areas: persistence, professionalism, collaboration, and responsibility. Remember, we always talk about if this was your organization, if this was your company, what kind of employee would you want? And are you that person? Okay, always looking at it from that perspective. So a strong work ethic is someone who's persistent, They'll continue to work on something even if it's difficult. If they don't know how to proceed, they ask for guidance. This is why it's okay to ask for help, because getting help on how to complete a task is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. A poor work ethic person who does not have persistence will not want to do difficult work, avoid that, and will leave it to the last minute, or will not do the work. Okay, now that has an impact on the team. In terms of professionalism, works to maintain professionalism in the within the workplace at every situation. So that speaks about the way that you dress, the way that you speak to people, the way that you conduct yourself, the way that you write your emails. It's all of those things in terms of professionalism. Okay, what does it mean to be a professional? And actually, maybe that's a good thing to kind of cover in one of my sessions. What does it mean to be professional? What does it mean to be a professional? Yeah, what does it mean to be a professional? This person who has a poor work ethic does not care about professionalism, will often cause disruptions in the organization's typical processes. So somebody that perhaps is not tactful, perhaps is always the gossip, perhaps is always undermining what people are doing, that's somebody that is not professional. And again, impacts the work and the team. Collaboration. Understands that the company benefits more when employees can display teamwork in the workplace and strives to contribute as much as possible within a group setting. So giving that context of the soccer player, don't drop the ball. Well, you don't hold the ball in soccer. You don't figuratively drop the ball. If it's something that you meant to do, a task you meant to do, you get that done and you add your contribution to the team. Because if you don't do that, right, this is what happens to someone with a poor work ethic. They don't care about creating an open, collaborative workplace. They will disrupt group settings with behavior that minimizes their colleagues' contributions. I told you I've had many jobs and I've seen many colleagues who come to work just to not do work. And I often wanted to ask them, why are you here? Why do you get up every day, get dressed, get in your car, use petrol, drive to the office, and then prevent work from happening? I could not understand that. I still don't understand that. So responsibility respects the work they're given and is consistent in completing it. That's very important. They also take responsibility for any mistakes and work to correct them. So having the humility to say, oops, that was my mistake, I will correct it, versus not taking your duty seriously, not taking responsibility. And you almost know that this person is not going to do what they say they're going to do, right? So think about when you've done group work. There's people that exhibited a strong work ethic, and there are those that exhibited a poor work ethic. So if you were one of those who were in the group setting and you kind of did these things because you think it was important, I'm telling you now, this is going to follow you into your job. And people are going to notice this, and people are going to start to say, this person actually does not really care about their job. So something to understand about every single employee you're going to work for. A healthy work ethic, people with healthy work ethics get rewarded. They're the ones who get promoted. They're the ones who get put on projects. They're the ones who managers speak about. Now, I also was in managers meetings when I was in higher education. I got into a manager role, and it was so interesting for me to understand that employees who thought the managers did not know what they did, they know very well what they were doing and what they were not doing. And so you want to be discussed for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons, because poor work ethics reflect negatively on your personal brand. If you think that it's only in that organization that people kind of know that you're not a good worker, it's not just in that organization. Word spread, it's actually a very small world. If you are somebody that is known to be someone that is a good worker, someone that is professional, someone that gets things done, actually a word about you spreads more than just in that organization. I don't know how else to explain it to you other than this happens. So I want to give you a case study of one of my co-workers with a very poor work ethic. And this person was one of those people that I don't know how he kept his job for so many years. He would say, yes, okay, I'll do this thing. And as he said those words, you knew it was not going to get done. I remember one day we were working on a very important live event. We were going to be at this massive sporting event, and he was supposed to be in charge of sorting out the tent and the food. And we're on the call with the manager. He's calling him and saying, okay, Can you make sure these things are going to happen? Yeah. I'll speak to the caterers. No problem. It'll get done. And as he's saying that, I knew I had to do a backup plan. So I called somebody who was going to be there earlier. I said, listen, please can you help put up the tent? This person is promising that these people are going to do that. It's not going to happen. He promised that there would be coffee. I knew there would not be coffee there. So he wasn't my direct person to manage. And I had to speak to his manager. And his manager's like, oh, no. He said it'll be done and will be done. But he never did his work. So what happens if you have a poor work ethic is that people have to work around you. They start to resent you because they know that you are going to make work more difficult for them at the end of the day. So don't be that guy, please. It's very difficult. And also, I think the fact that people get away with it, they kind of think it's okay, they still get the salary. But the thing is, you never grow. You never actually leave that organization. I'm pretty much sure he's still there doing the same job he was doing at the same grade level. People have moved on. So you are actually sabotaging yourself if you think, once I get the job and the salary, I don't actually have to work. Some people do think that. And it's actually very hard to fire people. So, I think people get stuck in these roles, and there's some environments where that's tolerated more than other environments. I think in a corporate environment, less so. This is obviously me talking about somebody in a higher education environment. In a corporate environment, let me give you another example. There was somebody that came into a corporate setting, and he was actually like on an executive level. So for 7 months, he basically just didn't do anything. Like he said he would do stuff, he wouldn't even be in meetings. And after 7 months, then they kind of gave him a package to leave, essentially. In higher education, maybe he'd still be working there. I don't know. But for yourself, for your own progression in life, you want to take your work seriously. Now, I know maybe I'm speaking to people that already have a strong work ethic because you're doing a post-grad qualification, and more than one perhaps. So I think I'm speaking to the right crowd here. But for those of you who also are irked by those who kind of avoid work, I think this is something that you're going to have to learn how to deal with. You might have to work around these people, unfortunately. So understand that your strong work ethic that you're going to take to this job, like Bianca was saying, I see a question, I'll come to you now. Thanks for raising your hand. Your strong work ethic is going to be your moneymaker. Okay, I'll say that again. Your strong work ethic is going to be your moneymaker. Because whatever job you have is giving you a wealth of wisdom, is giving you skill sets. So I'll tell you about another example where I worked really hard the 1 year in one organization, and I actually got a 4.5 on my KPA out of 5, which was the highest I've ever gotten. And for that to happen, I had to have a high net worth individual who gave 2.5 million rand. And actually, I met a donor who did that. I had to get, I think, maybe 10 million or more on my bursary income. I did all of that. I worked really hard that year. And in that year, I was expecting a really good bonus because I got a 4.5 out of 5 of my KPA. I was like, yay, I get a bonus. I worked so hard. And there was a strike at that university, and they decided that they wouldn't give everybody the same increase. I was mad, guys. I was mad. I was pissed off. I'm like, what? I worked so hard. I worked late nights because I was living in Pretoria at the time. Well, I was, in Pretoria, so the traffic was horrible. But then I applied to a different institution, and the salary I got there was almost, I got like a third more, not just like 5,000 more. It was quite significant. Let me just say that. So even if you work hard in an organization and you're not promoted in that same company, you still take those skill sets with you. You still become more valuable to the marketplace. I was able to realize, you know what, I'm a bloody good fundraiser. And I that confidence helped me to apply for a job in a different organization to earn more money. So don't ever feel like you were wasting your work ethic, because what can happen is you can get frustrated, you can get demotivated by your manager. Every single day that you go to work, remember it's for you to grow. Yes, you're going to be helping to move things forward, but keep your plan in mind. And a big thing I wish I knew much earlier is that your manager is not God. When I became a manager, I thought, okay, I'm going to be a much better manager than I had. But then being a manager is tough. You basically sit in meetings the entire day, and then you can only do your work later on. It's really not wonderful. So I learned that about managing, like, okay, maybe that's not actually what I want to do. So your manager is going to be fallible. Maybe you have a great leader, and that's awesome, but they're going to also have bad days. They'll also make mistakes. They are human, okay? You have to take charge of your life and manage your life well. So let's come to that question. Someone had their hand raised. Sorry, I was just kind of on a tangent there. You can ask your question. Who was it? Go for it. Is that Nikki? Nicole?
Yes, it's Cheryl.
Hi.
Hi. I hope you're well. My question is a bit more personal. So we were starting with like you were mentioning the strong work ethic. But I guess my worry is always like, you get people with a strong work ethic, and then that strong work ethic can also quickly turn into a toxic work ethic, like that you
Yes.
overextend yourself and you put in, I would be like, your norm becomes working past 5. So like whenever the business day ends. So I guess I would like to know from you, like, do you have any tips on how to balance or kind of like manage your strong work ethic? Because what happens for me is I get so like swamped up with the project, and I like so much what I do that my day never ends at 5. Like last week it ended at 7 or 8, and then you're back in the office before 8. So and that's not sustainable, because I mean then when you're off for a week or more from work and nothing gets done just because of your strong work ethic to like want to overinvest.
So Nikki, it is Nikki, right? Not Nicole. Correct?
Yes, it's Nikki.
Nikki, what are you currently doing since you are aware of it? What are you trying to do to kind of circumvent that a little bit?
So currently, the things that I've put in place is, I've tried to, so I have a to-do list that I have to do at work every day. And I try to block out time specifically to tackle the to-do list and actually take a break. And in the break to just take my mind off of work. And also another thing that happens is like because I help a lot of so I have 1 or 2 honor students that I help, and there was an elective student that I helped as well. So a lot of students come during the day when I'm busy with things, and then they ask advice or guidance, and then my train of thought goes from what I'm actively busy with to kind of like solving their problem, then getting invested in their problem. Then I still want to finish my to-do list for the day. So I'm struggling quite a bit because like obviously for instance with like honor students or elective student, they're only here for like a specific period of time. It's not like me that I'll study my master's next year. But what's kind of happened is that because I'm prioritizing their short-term needs above addressing my own problems, I struggle to stop working at 5 because I'm not satisfied with what I've gotten, like the work that I've gotten done in the day.
I understand. So now, Nikki, a quick question. If you could maybe look at your work week and see if there could be an optimal day where you could say, guys, I'm only able to see you between these times on these 2 days. Would that be possible? Or do they just kind of walk in whenever they can?
Yeah, so that would be fantastic on paper, I think. But like they just kind of walk into your office.
Right.
And then they there's that silent pressure where they're looming in the door and looking at you all wistfully. So
I've worked in higher education environments. I know what you mean. And also I can hear that you do care, right? So, okay, if you can't really control when they pop by, have you in your work day planned for that interruption to happen? Since you know it's going to happen.
No, I actually haven't.
And how much let's just think about on an average day, how much time do you think you spend with the honor students?
So it depends what exactly needs to be done, but I would say the average time is probably 1 to 2, maybe 3 hours max.
Okay,
That's
that's
if
a
I
big
need to
chunk
help.
of your day. That's a big
Yeah.
chunk of your day that's putting pressure on you that is happening, but you actually haven't put it into your plan. Okay. So I think what you can start with is number one, acknowledging what is the stuff you're actually passionate about, and it's also helping the students. And then thinking, okay, how can I plan for this? Because here's the thing, Nikki, about the things that we're passionate about. It can consume us, right? So it's very important to remind ourselves that our identity can't come from this. So, like giving you an example for my business, right? I could spend a lot of time, like all day, just working on that. But I'm also a mom. I'm also a wife. I also have other things, right? I have to also make sure I take care of my health and all of that stuff. So I can only give maybe 4 to 5 hours a day to my business stuff. Um, and like for example, last night I did a session between 6 and 7:30, and I loved it. It's energizing. Okay. But then I can't do that every day because that's also going to impact my personal life. So I think your homework, Nikki, is going to be number one, actually plan for the interruptions I know is going to happen. Okay. And then give yourself more time in the week to prioritize those tasks in terms of what's urgent and what's important and what things can be delegated and what things do I not have to do. Because I think somebody who loves their work can get very much into burnout. And you've actually also admitted that you're kind of creating this for yourself. So burnout is something that we can't control, but also working in Stellenbosch University, I also know the pressure's there as well. But to give yourself that permission to take that break, because when we rest, we're actually supposed to rejuvenate, meaning to kind of energize. And so we're able to, if we take a longer break, come back much more refreshed and get more done. Because the workaholic cycle is this downward spiral. You feel tired, you have more coffee, you eat unhealthy food, you don't exercise, and you're less and less productive. You get into brain fog. See what happens? You can't speak straight. Uh, so that's kind of what happens. So I think the biggest thing is to understand that you can control certain aspects of that. Plan for those interruptions, number one, and see kind of where that takes you. First, make small changes, right? So the first change would be, okay, how do I plan for this interruption? Okay, next thing, how do I put a kind of stop on my day? Do I walk away from my computer? Do I leave the office? Do I leave my laptop somewhere where I can't see it? What is my bedtime? You slowly kind of work with that. I hope that's helped you. Hope that's helped you with your question, Nikki. But you see, thank you for asking that, you and Bianca. These are very real things that we are feeling. Okay, so some self-reflection questions for the rest of the group in terms of handling the workplace complexities, right? So what are my fears? I want you to make a note of this. Think about it. What are my fears about handling the complexities of the workplace? Have I perhaps been trying to avoid stepping into a real job? For those of you who have had some work experience, maybe you want to kind of think, okay, maybe I should put that on hold for a bit because that's a bit crazy, right? What one thing can I do to grow my confidence in this area in terms of the fact that I need to work so that I can make money? How can I help myself to get closer to that and not to feel so afraid? And what will I lose if I keep delaying this process? So some of you already are studying and working as well, and that also creates complexity. But also, someone who's done that, it's also a good thing because as you work, it teaches you a lot more context around what's actually relevant and practical. So it adds more meaning to your studies. So if you maybe are in that kind of in-between phase where you haven't yet got a job, I want you to consider maybe looking for something part-time or like a short contract like Bianca had, just because it helps you to figure out what's really going on in the real world of work. And what will I win if I step into it? Because also something that's kind of building that fear is other people already have started to earn, money and they've got their cars and I'm still studying what's happening, so to kind of alleviate that, to see, okay, how can I start taking small baby steps into that? So for the rest of the session, I want to just talk about how can we showcase the value of what you actually can bring to the world of work. Remember, we spoke in previous sessions about taking the skills that you have in academia and translating that into skills that the workplace is looking for. So the first thing that you want to do when you think about how do I showcase my value, remember we spoke about the metaphor of the diamond. You're a rough diamond, and the workplace is going to carve and sculpt and mold and polish this diamond. Okay, and that's not always a easy process, often a painful process, but that painful process results in something very powerful and very beautiful and very valuable. Okay, so first thing to do to start showcasing your value is decide that you will not live in the drama fairy tale land. You're not going to be waiting for somebody else to come along and save the day. You are going to be the hero of your own story, of your own life, and you're going to take back the pen and rewrite your story. Adventures are messy and complex and scary, but they are also rewarding and exhilarating. You find amazing people along the way, you find opportunities along the way, you find a journey into your real self. And remember your game plan. What are you playing for? We spoke in the previous sessions around what is my purpose? We've uncovered a bit of that. Like, what is the work that you want to really dedicate most of your time for? How much money will you need to do that? How can I make this money? Because ultimately, the people that I'm speaking to on the call today, you care about something so much that you've dedicated years of your life to this, right? So how can I use my jobs, the money that comes from my jobs? How can I think about how to create my different income streams so that I can decide what my work life is going to look like? I'll tell you another story. I was at UP once, and there was a lady who used to work at UP, and I think she was doing training then. And so she told me about how she directs her work week. So 2 days of the week she's consulting, and the third day she works from home. Other 2 days she works somewhere else. And I remember feeling so like shocked, like wow, you actually do this for yourself? Like I didn't know this was possible, right? But I realized what I was first jealous of was actually something that I didn't know could be, because at that time I was working in a job, stuck in traffic, kind of feeling like the victim in my story. But seeing somebody else saying, hey, I am going to dictate, I'm going to have the audacity to write my own work story, I was like, shucks, this can actually happen. This is amazing. So what is your work story? Are you going to buy into the work sucks narrative? And I think if you do that, you're going to just kind of go along the river of life like everybody else and wait for someone else to come along and change the direction of their lives. Or are you going to allow each job to teach you about where you are right now and where you want to be? Okay, I think that you're probably going to choose the latter. And in every job, to think about, how do I want to show up every day? We spoke in the previous session about showing up. If this is my company, what kind of employee would I want to hire? Now, also, we can't put too much pressure on ourselves. It might be some days or weeks where there's other situations happening in our lives where we can't be this top performer, right? But what shifted for me was when I left my job it was 2007, tried to do a business, realizing, wow, businesses are tough. But because I had to start earning my own salary, when I got into higher education in 2009, I never took a salary for granted ever again. I started asking myself, what would it take for me to, if this was my company, how would I run this? My work ethic changed a lot because I valued, the salary that I was getting at the end of every month. So think about, what kind of person would you like to be when you're coming into the world of work? And if you're not yet that person, it's okay. You are projecting a future self. You're projecting a part of your whole self, your real self. And ask yourself, what will it take for me to grow into that person? What guides, counselors, supporters, mentors do I need to help me? How do I need to assess my current social circle? Are the people that I'm talking to every day kind of have that work sucks narrative? Because if I do, I spend a lot of time with them, I'm going to go into that downward spiral. How do I find people that see work as energizing and fun and look for opportunities, who actually create opportunities? You want to get around those people a bit more, right? And how will I make sure that I come to work full? So when we go into those cycles of being so passionate about our work that we get kind of burnt out, that's a negative cycle. So how do I make sure that I'm keeping these habits in my life that, and I know it's tough. I'm still someone, and you have to continually keep applying this in your life to make sure that I'm taking care of my mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health, my emotional health, my financial health, all these things. How do I make sure that I come to work full so that I can pour out my energy, ideas, and passions? And if you do that, it totally changes the way that you see the world of work. Now, I've got a video here. Let me just see how much time we have. I'll first tell you the story, then I'll see how much time we have to play the video. Okay, so Jim Rohn is someone, if you want to hear more of his stuff, he's on YouTube. There's a lot of his things on YouTube. He said this quote, there's many quotes that are good of his, but he said, if you do more than you are paid to do, you will eventually be paid more for what you do. And I started, as I was in the process of paying off my debt and thinking about money and earning and all of that stuff, I put this onto my office at the my office wall. And there was a student there, he was a master's student, and he kind of mocked me. He's like, oh, Cheryl, don't get into this capitalism state of mind, you know? And he kind of scoffed at it. But he also found a way out of his obligations with his funder. So I'm like, okay, the work ethic thing, I think, you know, he's more on the poor work ethic side. Just do minimal things and kind of get away with it. I'm like, okay, that's not really my philosophy in life. So if you do more than you are paid to do, so it doesn't mean that you have to go into a toxic work ethic. Although in that job, I think I was a bit in that workaholism state. But I started to rethink the way that I was working. I started to look at the relationships that I was building. I started to look at the projects that I was doing that was actually having meaning and value. And that helped me to figure out what I wanted my next role to be like. And my next role took me to Stellenbosch University, where although it was, I call it the best of times and the worst of times, it was actually the environment where it reignited my passion for the work I'm doing now. I met this amazing student, Mikael Hendricks. I always talk about him. And it reminded me, this is what I want to do with my life, right? So now I am being paid more for what I do and I don't have a job. It's taken years to do that. Okay. And I'm only bringing this up because I think in a few conversations with this group, I found that there's this reticence to just be in a job. And I totally get that because you love the research, you love the work. So I'm telling you that the same way that that lady was my example, that you can actually dictate your work week, that it is possible. In the previous session, I spoke about a book called The 10% Entrepreneur by Patrick McGinnis. Have a look at that book as well. If you are thinking about what you want your future work life to look like, you are the one that has to make that happen. No one else is going to do that. Not Stellenbosch University, not your partner, not anybody else, not any organization that's a dream organization. You have to do that, which means that you have to take responsibility for your own life. So before I go into the video, I actually have 5 minutes left. So I want to first go into what's coming up in the next module. But remember that everyone is not the way that you are. And your personality is also constantly evolving. So have a bit of grace for yourself and other people. And remember, what is your financial targets? If you want to think about what your ideal life will look like, how much money will you need for that to happen? And then who do you need to become to be able to make this happen for your life? Okay. I'll come to questions now. I just want to talk about the next session on Saturday morning will be how do we create these healthy work habits? And thank you, Nikki, for that question about, she gave us a very good example of a real life example. How do I manage my tasks, my work day, email overload, all of that stuff? I'm going to go into that on Saturday. And then for theme 4 that's coming up, I will share a video as well with Yongi to share with everybody. But we're going to look at how do I build a great life? How do I actually build this life that I'm imagining and dreaming about, but don't know if it's actually going to be possible, right? So they will look at how to embrace failure. How do we create our own professional map from where we are to where we want to go? How can we shift from one role into the next role and keep that end in mind? How do we win at work? have wholeness at work, and become a global professional. So I cover all of this in this slides. You'll have access to these slides. But let's quickly look at questions and comments, and then I'll show you a bit of the video for those who can't stay on. Any questions or comments for anybody before we end up today?
I don't see anything at the moment.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think, Yankee, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video. And for those of us who can't stay on the call, it's actually how long is this video? Let me have a look. A 10-minute video. It'll be part of the recording, Yankee. So then I think once that's done, you can then stop the recording, and whoever's done can then leave the session. But I just think it's a brilliant video. So I want to play it. That's okay? Perfect. Great. Thank you, everyone. I will see you on Saturday. And this is a message that I want to leave you with. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job.
This one I had to struggle with, personal development. It was hard for me to give up my old blame list. It was so comfortable blaming the government and blaming my negative relatives and the company policy, unions, wage scale, economy, interest rates, prices and circumstances and all that. That was difficult for me to give up. That was quite a transition for me to make, and blaming myself. But Mr. Shoaib started out with something very, very important. Let me give that to you. He said, it's not what happens that determines the major part of your future. It's not what happens. What happens, happens to us all. He said the key is what you do about it. It's not what happens, it's what you do about it. And he said if you will start that process of change, do something different the next 90 days than you did the last 90 days, like picking up the books to read. Do something different, like the new health disciplines, relationship with your family, whatever it is, doesn't matter how small it is. If you'll start doing different things with the same circumstances, since we cannot change the circumstances, but we can change ourselves. We can change what we do. And then he gave me another secret to success when he said, what you have at the moment, Mr. Rohn, you've attracted by the person you've become. What you have at the moment, you've attracted by the person you've become. Few little simple principles here. Once you understand these, it starts to explain so much. Now, sometimes it's a little tough to take, blaming yourself instead of the marketplace, taking responsibility instead of putting it off on someone else. That transition sometimes is a challenging mission. And this one was a little tough for me. He said, Mr. Rohn, you've got pennies in your pocket, you've got nothing in the bank, the creditors are calling, you're behind on your promises. And he says, here's how that occurs. You've attracted, up until now, you've attracted the things to you because of the person you've become. Now I said, well, how can I change all that? He said, very simple. If you will change, everything will change for you. You don't have to change what's outside. All you've got to change is what's inside. To have more, you simply have to become more. And then he said, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Start working on yourself, making these personal changes, and he said it'll all change for you. So let's talk a little bit about personal development. And in helping kids understand personal development, I always start with money. We get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. Key to understanding economics. We get paid for bringing value to the marketplace. Marketplace is also described as reality. Reality, the marketplace. Now, it takes time. It takes time to bring value to the marketplace, but we don't get paid for time. It's very important for kids to understand, as well as adults. We don't get paid for time. Mistakenly, the man says, well, I'm making about $20 for an hour. Not true. Not true. If that was true, you could just stay home, have them send your money. No, it's not true. You don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you put in the time. So we don't get paid for time, we get paid for value. Now, since that's true, here's one of the key questions of the afternoon. Is it possible to become twice as valuable and make twice as much money in the same time? Of course. If you want to really emphasize something, that's a good phrase, Stuart. Of course. Of course. Okay. Now, all you have to do to earn more money in the same time is simply become more valuable. America's unique. It's a ladder to climb. Starts down here, what, about $4 an hour? Right, this is not a bed. This is a ladder. It's a ladder to climb. Starts at $4. Now somebody says, well, should be five. Well, maybe. If you're going to stay at the bottom for the rest of your life, it probably should be 5. But that's kind of a pitiful way to live. Start and not grow. Start and not change. Start and not become more valuable. Hey, the whole scenario of life is to start, number 1, and what? Become more valuable, number 2. Now, why would we pay somebody only $4 an hour? They're not very valuable to the marketplace. Now, we got to make that distinction, to the marketplace. Might be a valuable brother, a valuable member of the community, valuable member of the church, valuable member in the sight of God, to the human family, of course, those kind of values. But to the marketplace, which is called what? Reality. Reality is, if you're not very valuable, you don't get much money. Those are called the facts. I mean, that's how that is. Well, then how do you get more money? Simple answer. Somebody says, well, I'll go on strike for more. Well, here's a major problem with that. You can't get rich by demand. Somebody says, well, I'm waiting for a raise. I'm telling you, it's easier to climb than to wait for a raise. Why not just become more valuable rather than wait? I'm telling you, that's the key to all good things. Becoming more valuable. I got a telephone call 5 years ago. Company said, we're ready to expand internationally, we need some help. I was sort of semi-retired, right? Looking for the next exotic beach. They said, no, Mr. Rohn, we got a project for you, right? Going to expand internationally, we could use your help. Next little while, we'll add some millions to your fortune, make it worth your while. I said, okay. I thought later, isn't that interesting that they called me? My second thought was, of course they'd call me. Who else would they call? I mean, I can get the job done. Now, how come I got a telephone call worth millions? I had become valuable. Now, I'm a farm boy from Idaho. I was raised in obscurity. 1 year of college, and I thought I was thoroughly educated. Made all kinds of mistakes galore. At age 25, the creditors are calling me saying, hey, you told us the check was in the mail. I got pennies in my pocket. I got nothing in the bank. I'm behind on my promises. How come I get a telephone call 5 years ago and it's worth millions? I changed. I turned my life around. Is it possible to become worth millions? Speaking economically, now there's a lot of values to become, but let's just talk economics. Is it possible to become that valuable? And the answer is, of course. Now let me give you the secret. Shoaff said, here's the secret, Mr. Rohn. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Once I got that, it turned my life around. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. He said, if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. Wow. If you would have known me at age 25, you would have said, Jim Rohn's a hard worker. If you'd have known me, you'd have said that. I'm the guy, I don't mind coming a little bit early, staying a little bit late. I don't mind that. You'd have said, well, Jim Rohn's a hard worker. You say, well, how come he's got pennies in his pocket and nothing in the bank and behind on his promises? Well, I was a hard worker, but I was working hard on my job, not on myself. I'm telling you, if you'll learn that simple little principle and start the process today, latest tomorrow, I'll give you tonight to think it over. And start this whole process of personal development, work on yourself, make yourself more valuable to the marketplace. I'm telling you, you can so dynamically change your income, and economics is the least of the values that you can start earning in terms of equity if you'll start working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Work hard on yourself and develop the skills. Work hard on yourself and develop the graces. All of the stuff necessary to become more valuable to the marketplace. I'm telling you, your whole life can explode into change. Promotions, no problem. Becoming more valuable to the company, I'm telling you, no problem. Money, no problem. Economics, no problem. Future, no problem. If you just go to work on the right thing. Not get things out there to change. Don't try to change the seed. Don't change the soil. Don't change the sunshine. Don't change the rain. Don't change the mix of seasons. Let the miracle of everything that's available work for you. And start working on the inside. Work on your philosophy. Work on your attitude. Work on your personality. Work on your language. Work on the gift of communication. Work on all of your abilities. And if you'll start making those personal changes, I'm telling you, everything will change for you.
Sorry about that. There you go, everybody. So thank you for those of you who stayed on the call. I hope that was an inspiring video, and I hope I've inspired you as well to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. It's work for me. It's a long process. It's a daily process, but this is essentially what wholeness at work is. So I hope that's been inspiring, and we'll see you all on Saturday morning. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Anki.